I'm Howard McCullough. I'm a forestry technician here at Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, and I've been here for the past 23 years. We have, in the early 2000s, late 1990s and early 2000s, we had a series of years that were real dry. We had some pretty good project fires back starting in '98 and then again in 2001, 2002. But 2007 seemed to be the record year in terms of drought. Well, the initial fire was actually did not start on the refuge. It started about 12 miles northwest of the refuge on private property, northwest of Waycross. It was started by a downed power line. It had some high winds, and the power line hit the ground and caused a spark and a fire that ran eventually 12 miles into the northwest corner of the refuge. The community handled it well. Obviously it was stressful for them because they did lose structures, they lost. What's important to folks around here is this is a timber-driven economy, whether it's private-owned timber or whether it's commercially owned timber with some of these big paper companies. And there were a lot of acres that were destroyed by the fire that had to be salvaged afterwards. I've seen a lot of fire on this refuge, but it actually got into the place on the north end of the refuge that had not burned since the 1932 fire. So roughly it was about 75 years worth of fuel buildup in that area of the swamp. The conditions were such that it was going to be hard to control. One of my roles as resource advisor was to actually fly and map the perimeter of the fire each day. I actually get assigned when we have a fire on Okefenokee Refuge as a resource advisor. And what a resource advisor does is actually he works for the refuge, but he also works with the operations part of the incident management teams that come in and help the refuge manage these fires. Inside the perimeter of the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, most of this is a swamp ecosystem. We do have some pine uplands around the edge, and we do also have some pine islands in the interior, but the majority of it is swampland, which has a lot of organic soils, peat. And as the drought progresses, these layers of peat begin to dry out, and these fires get entrenched in that peat, and it's something that we just can't put out. I mean, we have attempted to and spent tens of millions of dollars and never put it out. We just had to wait on what we call a season-ending event, which could be anywhere from a 5 to 6 inch rainfall. I think in terms of what we did well, was we tried to stay ahead of it in terms of the forecast and tried to predict where it was going to move so that we could plan these burnouts. And a burnout is where we actually set a fire ahead of the main fire to take the fuels out in front of it and control it on our terms instead of just letting it run where it wants to or where the wind drives it. The Okefenokee swamp needs fire to maintain itself as a swampy ecosystem. And in that sense, it was a big help for the refuge. It actually opened up areas that had been encroached by years and years of growth without fire.